We got about 10 minutes of flight time left. Let's zip you on over here real quick. Oh man, there we go. Check this place out. How would you love to dig in that yard? It's absolutely awesome. And then off in the distance was the cavalry battle of Randy Station. In fact, yeah, I'm going to turn around and see if I can come back and show you the front of the house. All this field you can see that I'm panning over is what we can hunt on this dig. There you go. Look how pretty that place is. Civil War period home, set up on a hill. And then you have another little bit later house here. But manicured gardens, really nice. But so super cool. Yeah, it's really cool. Headquarters for the hunt is right there. You got the smoker going. What you got?
I'm gonna move the handle over a little bit. Freaking wearing on my arm at an angle.
There you go. A little tour of this is just part of the farm here. I don't know how. I think it's a couple thousand acres, but it's awesome. Here, we're gonna buzz over these guys' heads. If I can find it. There you go, a little signal lag. We shouldn't know. Shoom. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this little fly around video.
What is up, and good evening, and welcome to Gone Diggin' live from the Relic Room. I hope everybody enjoyed that intro. That was a little bit different, and I'm always trying to build something and make the channel a little bit better. So first off, in the chat this evening, we have our guest, Adventure Archaeology. Clayton Merchant, Longest Howl is here. He said he went on a field trip to Pamplin Historical Park today, which is a fantastic place. If you guys have ever been there, go check it out. It's really cool. Finders Keepers. Mike Campbell's here hanging out. Ralph McGee. Mr. and Mrs. Nugget Shooter are here hanging out, and Miss Nugget Shooter says she misses Virginia. Wes Stringer, Miss Liz, the Diggin' Canuck is here, Coils the Soils, and everybody else. So we've got 15 here hanging out in the chat. I hope everybody had a great week of digging wherever you went out to. I wanted to show you guys, I had a fantastic week. I got to go to Digging in Virginia, here in Central Virginia. The wife was great. Everything turned out well, and we did not have a baby while I was gone. So we are up to any day now. But I just wanted to share a oh, Adventure Archaeology's mom's here. Everybody say hello to Terror Dog, Adventure Archaeology's mom. Everybody please say hi, Mom. So I had a great week, and I got to dig something really cool, and I wanted to share that with you guys. And I'm going to have a video of that coming up probably in the next couple weeks. It's going to take me a while to put it together, but as you can see popping up here on the screen, that is me in the center, my good friend Frankie on my right, and my buddy Jamie on the left. We got into an absolutely epic Civil War soldier's hut. A lot of dirt to move there, but you'll notice in the foreground there is a Civil War era patent whiskey bottle and a very nice sword scabbard that Jamie dug. So I had a great week digging. I hope everybody else did as well. So before we go too much farther, what I want to do is introduce my guest this evening, Brandon from Adventure Archaeology. Great channel, incredible channel growth this year, and but the whole reason for that is he does really awesome stuff. So let's see if we can bring him in here. So, hey Brandon, we there?
Yeah, man, I'm here.
Let's see. I got a little volume issue.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. All right, cool, man. Super glad to have you on tonight. You know, me and Brandon. Maybe if you just shift a little bit to your right.
There you go. I went the wrong way.
Yeah, you went the wrong way. You're good. Me and Brandon talk a lot on the phone about YouTube and bottle digging and treasure hunting. But it's really cool to actually get to hang out and talk everything, you know, metal detecting and treasure hunting. So I mean, let's start off the beginning. You know, how did you start into this whole, bottle digging, metal detecting? What got you started in this?
Well, it really all started with my dad. My dad back during the '80s, he was a bottle digger, probably one of the first in this general area. And I really did. He metal detected while I was growing up. We hunted arrowheads while out riding dirt bikes on different power line roads and different stuff like that. We were never really diggers or anything until I was actually grown. He didn't take me out digging. I really didn't have any interest in it until I was around 21. And that was, me and him were actually doing a side job one day, and he was like, hey, do you want to go check this bottle dump out? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, there's a bottle dump over here, and I heard they're digging Coca-Cola Hutchinsons over there. So we went over and dug for about 30 minutes, and there was a bunch of people there digging, and I dug my first Hutch bottle, and from there I was hooked.
Yeah. All it takes is one relic, right? Like, that's it.
Yeah, it set a fire under me after that, and you know, I came home incredibly dirty after that first dig, and I thought my wife was that was crazy, and she's kind of outgoing anyways, and she's like, no, you're going to take me with you. So next thing I know, the following week, me and her out there, and we're digging, and it became almost a weekly ritual there for a year or two, and we dug a ton in this one particular dump and found a lot of cool stuff, and from there it just kind of blossomed, and we just kept doing it. It's really been a blast.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so in a lot of your videos that I watch, you have a couple guys you dig with, right?
I sure do. Clayton Marchant, who's in the chat, he digs with me. My dad, you've probably seen him in some of the videos. Tristan Pitts, he digs with us a good bit. He may or may not be on here, I'm not sure. Michael Hartman, he's one of the people that I dig with, which really we have a pretty good group of guys because of how deep we go. We all kind of have an understanding that it's going to take more than one of us to dig the size hole that we put in the ground. And by us having a good relationship, it makes it easy when we find something killer to be excited for the guy that found it, even though we may not have put all of the work into the hole ourselves. So by dividing the work and dividing the finds, we just have built a really good team.
Yeah, and so when you talk about big, deep holes, I mean, so the picture that you saw was a reasonable size hole, but it was nothing compared to what you guys dig.
Yeah, it's probably at our deepest, we've probably been about 14 feet deep. And, you know, it gets really, really questionable after about 8 foot, really. you know, a lot of people talk about shoring the walls up and different things like that. And yeah, you can do that, but as fast as we move, once we get to the bottom of a hole, it's just a constant cave in. So there's really no reason to shore the walls up if it's going to cave just a few minutes later. So it's became kind of an art. We figured out how to do it and do it safely, and it's really been fun figuring it out as we go.
Well, and I think that's you guys have enough experience, and I mean that's really cool because your dad started off. I mean he had the knowledge to pass to you to kind of give you the information to say, hey, this is safe. Hey, this is unsafe.
Yeah, he did. I mean, in all honesty, though, what the dumps that he was digging in the '80s were only 4 and 5 feet deep, and so he didn't dig quite to the depth that we do, and he's still very nervous at how deep that we go now. But we've kind of built enough in each other that we know that basically don't dig by yourself. Always have somebody there with you. Always kind of have in the back of your mind that, you know, the bottle at the bottom of the hole isn't worth your life, because sadly there has been bottle diggers that have been injured and even killed at the bottom of a hole. In Atlanta, there was a digger that died a few years ago that was really deep, had a big cave in, and they didn't get to him in time. So that's always in the back of our mind, and we always try to be safer than what it looks. The videos sometimes make it look worse than what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like anything on the internet, there's 1,000 armchair quarterbacks that are going to tell you you're doing it wrong. You know, so
right.
The experience of doing it, obviously, it's, you know, this isn't for the first time person who goes out and digs. So, you know, so I guess that's why you kind of got into bottles. What kind of era of bottles are you guys looking for? What are you targeting when you go out and look for these places?
Well, that's where things get interesting. A lot of people think that we aren't digging old enough bottles, because really the bracket that we're trying to dig in is between 1880 and about 1925. So we've stayed about a 40-year bracket. And the reason for that is because I'm in the Birmingham, Alabama area. And first off, Birmingham really wasn't even incorporated as a town until 1881. And so the bottles that are there are not going to be embossed. A lot of it will be slick whiskeys and stuff before that. And there wasn't just an abundance of people in this area until that time frame. But the other reason is because of the cola boom at that time. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it, but there's actually a book out there called Cola Wars. And it's all about all these bottling factories and different things that came into different towns. And between 1880 and 1925, over 80 different bottlers came into Birmingham alone. So there's 80 different kinds of bottles out there from that time period, which is interesting. And there's over 75 in Atlanta. So there's just a ton of variance in that particular age bracket. And also what I like to call, well, I say what I like to call, actually it's been dubbed by other bottle diggers, the Magnificent Seven fall into that bracket as well. And what that is, that's the 7 variants from Alabama of the Coca-Cola Hutch.
That's wild, man. I guess you know, a lot of those slug plates and stuff like that, like I understood from like Richmond bottles, and people don't understand what a slug plate is. It's just a blank bottle, and if you were a bottler, you would have stamped your label on it versus a paper label, so you got your bottle back. You know, but I guess I didn't realize there were that quantity of bottlers, especially in your area.
Yeah, once Coca-Cola hit the market, there were so many copycats that came after it. I mean, you had Coca-Cola, but then you might have Celery Cola, or you may have Nova Cola, or you may have Riola. Those were all variants from different people trying to copycat Coca-Cola. There was even a company that came out called Cola Co., who actually got sued by Coca-Cola for taking their script, the cursive writing that says Coca-Cola. They actually embossed that on their bottles. And when you delve into that history and you really research it, it really can become an obsession if you're not careful.
Yeah, so here in Virginia we have a Tenca-Cola, which was sued by Pepsi, and actually what you'll find is their bottles with their labels absolutely ground off, and then they kept reusing the bottles. So Mark Sexton, so Mark, we're going to get to your question in just a second, but so you're someone who's looking for dumps, right? Do you ever dig privies or, you know, anything else?
We have started to get it more into the privy side of things. Actually, probably in the past 6 months or so, we've done a lot of research on it. And around here, they used what was called, it was kind of like, they called it a closet. And instead of privies, they actually had like outhouses set up, and the city would come around and take the closets out. And it would be like you had like a bucket in that closet. So there's not as many privies as you would think there would be in our general area. Now there are some, but just not as many. I have not truthfully dug but about 2 privies, and everything I dug out of those privies were broke. So I'm primarily a dump digger, and I enjoy that more so because I know that once I dig down, I know I'm going to find it, and I don't have a lack of dumps. I've got about 7 or 8 different dumps within an hour or 2 of where I'm at that I can keep myself busy finding different stuff every time I go.
So and I'm very new to dump digging. I actually got to dig in one at the very beginning of the year. But so each of these dumps are generally associated to each town, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Every now and then you would have a dump that would be between 2 towns. So you may get bottlers from one town and bottlers from another town throwing into the same dump. Or we've actually dug a few railroad dumps where it was a railroad stop, and there might be bottles from Memphis, Nashville, all over the Southeast that were thrown out of the railroad. So that's kind of really the cool dump to get into because you can find a large variety of stuff.
Wow, that's cool, and I never even considered that. Yeah, because I mean those railroad carts, they had service carts, they had, you know, where you could go a bar cart, so they would have done all the same common things that they do now, but in a much fancier fashion, you know.
That's exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool to think about, man. So Mark Sexton asked, so how do you decide the best place to dig in a dump? And when you hit bottom, I'm digging an old town dump that has mounds of early 1920s.
Well, that's sadly, you got to just dig to the bottom. Usually when you get to the bottom, at least down here in the South, there'll be a great clay layer. And when you hit that bottom, there'll be no more trash or leftover glass or anything. And you'll realize, okay, this is virgin ground. This is where they started filling in with the trash in the very beginning. But to get to the bottom, basically you have to start channeling sideways. And by doing that, you'll actually find older seams. So if you get into the bottom of a hole and you have it 5 by 5 foot, and you look in one direction and you can date the bottles in the 20s, and you look to the other direction, you can date them to the teens. Obviously, you're going to want to head toward the side that looks older. It's really just a matter of common sense once you get to the bottom and using your instincts to go off of. But a lot of times around here, because a lot of the dumps have been being dug since the 80s here, we can actually look at the glass that's on top of the ground and determine how old it was in that particular area. So you can start on one side of the dump, it might be 1901, 1902, and go 100 yards in one direction, and it'd be 30s and 40s. You know, so it's just really paying attention to the surroundings and looking at what you have to go off of. And if you're not for sure, heck, take some post hole diggers and pop you a couple of holes down there and look what kind of glass is down there if you don't want to put in a monster hole.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I never thought of because my one experience was those guys were reckless. They left all kinds of crap on top of the ground. So, you know, that's pretty easy. Like you just look at what other diggers left on top of the ground, and if they did a poor job of either slug plates or whatever, they would you just go wherever, you know. I guess that makes sense. I never thought about dating a part of a dump based off what was on top of the ground.
Yeah, that's really a good thing to do. And I mean, really and truthfully, down here, a lot of the power lines aren't even below ground. So you can, if you're close to a dump and there's a power pole, look where the power pole is, where they dug and drilled down to put the power pole in. You can look at the glass that surrounds the power pole. I have a buddy that actually found one of the oldest dumps in the Birmingham area by doing that. Crazy part is it was a stone's throw away from a dump that had been being dug for 20 years. People just didn't think to look there, and he was like, hey, I think there might be some bottles in that field over there. And everybody kind of laughed at him. He walked over next to a telephone pole, looked down, there was glass all around it. And that told him that, hey, when they dug the hole for the power pole, there was glass down there, so there's good stuff there. Ended up being a ton of Coca-Cola Hutchinsons from Birmingham there. And y'all know that Clayton just sold one of those for $6,000. So that can make a good that can make a good benefit of digging some big holes right there.
Yeah, good gosh, man. So when you talk about Hutchinsons, for people that don't understand what that is, can you explain what a Hutch bottle or a Hutchinson is?
I can. I probably got one behind me right here. Let's see if y'all can see that. That is a Hutchinson style bottle right here.
So just raise it. There you go. Raise it straight up.
Right here, your top is what makes it a Hutchinson bottle. And these were stopped being made around 1913. And what it is it was a patented stopper. It would actually have a piece of steel in here with a rubber grommet around it, and you'd actually pop that down into your drink to be able to drink it. So that's what makes a Hutchinson style bottle, basically, is just the top part of it.
Okay, so and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those really short, squatty shoulders and that big applied top to it, right?
Yeah, some people call them blob tops, but I mean, to me, that's very I don't know how to put it. That's too broad of a spectrum. Blob tops can go all the way back to like the Civil War age if you don't know really what you're talking about. So yeah, the Hutchinson style bottle, just look for the rounded top. And a lot of times, those bottles will still have the stopper inside of them. We'll dig them 100 years later, and it still has that stopper in there from where they pushed it down inside of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So just say hi to a couple folks: Madison, Maine, California Gold Rush. Adam, what is up, buddy? And I think you could appreciate this: is that California Gold Rush has negative temperatures, and I think you guys got to see snow in Alabama this week, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a real fine dusting. But for us, I forget how long they said it had been since we'd seen anything like that. To anybody else north of here, they'd say it was a frost. But to us, it was something to see.
Uper Digger. Who else did I see? I saw old Plugmaster Ford in here. Barb Connell with Dirt Pirates Detecting. So we got a lot of great folks in here. So moving on, so maybe you can talk about like some of the tools of what you use. A lot of people think about bottles and automatically think about probes. Do you guys ever use probes for what you do?
Yes, we do use probes. A lot of times you may get into the dump and you may be questioning if you get to the last bit of the day and you're thinking, man, there might be a bottle just a few inches further. And that's where that probe can come in handy, is when you're at the bottom of the hole, kind of put it in there at an angle and see if you hear anything whole just a few foot out of your reach. Because the last thing you want to do is leave your hole. And a lot of times we'll have one hole that may be open. We don't just leave these monster holes in the ground. We try to always backfill the previous hole that we dug. But that being said, you don't want to leave your spot open and somebody else jump in there, because there are claim jumpers just like there are metal detecting grounds in bottle dumps as well. So we always try to cover that basis and know that when we leave that we got everything that we could out of that spot. And we know we're coming back, but we don't want to leave that good bottle there for the next guy.
Yeah, you don't want to see a nice hutch sticking out of the wall. Unfortunately, I think it happens to everybody. In that dump I was in, I saw a little common poison just sitting right on the lip, and it was dirty. So when the rain washed it off, and there was a poison there. But I think that's kind of the nature of what you're doing, especially in those big areas. What kind of acreages are these places going through? I mean, are these like pretty consolidated to an acre or a couple acres? Or are you looking at some that are 10 acres?
Yeah, I would guess that right now the primary dump that's been producing for us is in the 10-acre range. We actually have one that we went to that's a few hours south of us that's probably only about an acre. There's another one in 2 or 3 in Birmingham that are all in the 2-acre range. Some of them are actually bottler dumps that we've been to, and they're a lot smaller. That would be where they had a wash plant for whenever they would reuse a bottle, they would wash it out. And if it had any imperfection at all, like any little chip or anything, they would throw it to the side. And usually that was just in either a ravine or a ditch or whatever was close to the bottling plant. In those particular areas, they may only be a spot that's 25 by 25, but it will be loaded with bottles. So, I mean, it really does range, but I'd say the largest one we dig in is around 10 acres, yeah.
That's cool, man. I guess I never even thought about that. Like, these people are, this is the day of when people things were built to last, and people reuse their bottles, not to be sold, stuff like that. And that makes a lot of sense. And I guess that would be good for having a probe or something like that for you, because those smaller dumps, you could come in and probe for them.
Right. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And then as far as like other stuff, just shovels and backs, right?
Yeah, I mean, I keep a battery operated Sawzall with me. You know, it comes in handy for roots. So I keep it. That's actually something that a lot of people don't think about keeping with them, but it just makes your life a whole lot easier if you have it with you. Um, I keep it with me. I keep a sharpshooter shovel, or basically a metal detecting shovel, with me at all times, because once you get into a hole, you're not going to be able to put a 5 foot shovel in there with you if you're sitting Indian style on the bottom of it. So the small metal detecting shovel comes in handy to be able to channel to the side. Um, Other than that, maybe a small hand 3-pronged fork comes in handy to kind of rake in the ash wall that's in front of you. It comes in real handy. And we'll usually have either a screwdriver or a small single prong fork to extract the bottles. And in a lot of the videos, you don't see us use that because we're digging out something that we know what it is. But if we see that it's something really rare, and you can usually tell by either markings on the heel or the bottom or the top, we'll use that to get it out. So I have a lot of comments on that on my videos. Hey, you're just yanking those bottles out of there. You know you're breaking stuff, and we're like, yeah, but we knew what it was before we got it out. So
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said, your mom said your dad uses a pitchfork. I've seen that used a lot.
yeah, pitchforks come in handy. The thing about it is some people cut the two center pieces out, or the two center forks out of it, so you just have the two outside parts of the fork kind of like this, and they'll stick it into the ground and twist it, and that'll break the ground up. And those 2 points, you still risk sticking them right through a bottle. I mean, to be honest with you, that's why I still use a shovel primarily. To me, you can break a bottle either way, whichever way you're using. But my luck, I know that I would stick it right through the center of a bottle. But a ton of diggers, that's all they use is pitchforks. It's really just what you prefer, I guess.
Yeah, I guess probably when you've got some of that material out that's harder to move with a shovel, a pitchfork would come in handy. But like you said, to dig with it, it's completely different. Different risk versus reward, I guess.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it does come in handy, though, for breaking up the top layer of ash, or even the iron layer part of the ash that's in the dump. It'll come in handy to help you get past maybe some barrel rings or anything like that. So it's just, I keep one in the car, but I don't always get it out. One of those scenarios.
And so people also understand that they burn these dumps in layers. So they dump some trash, then they try to burn some of it off, right?
Yeah, they did that. Sometimes it was accidental fire. Sometimes it was controlled. I mean, to think about it, most of the time your city or your town dump would be close to a creek anyways. And it was kind of either in a bend of a creek or in a low-lying area that was real swampy. So they could set it on fire and not really have to worry about it getting away. Plus, that would help them to be able to continue to use that dump for years and years and years. Otherwise, it's just going to keep stacking and get taller and taller. So the more they burn, the lower the trash piles got, the easier or the more they can pile in there. So most of them are going to have large ash layers. Some of them have small, like I mentioned, that small dump that's about 3 hours south of me. It only has about a foot tall ash layer in it. But one of the primary dumps that we dig in our videos has over 5 foot of ash in some areas. So they use that one for years and years.
That's really interesting. Especially, I guess the more you burned off, the better off it would be. A couple questions. Somebody, California Gold Rush said, 32 watching, 8 thumbs up. Everybody smash that thumbs up button. But Diggin Canuck asked, do you ever use a face mask or worry about pollutants?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we probably should. We have once or twice this year we've used face masks. Now, the majority of our videos put out this year, because we really didn't start hitting big on YouTube till around January, were during midsummer. And down here in the south, in 105 and 10-degree heat, and the humidity levels being so high, to put a mask on your face is almost pure torture. Now, is it worth your health? Absolutely not. But in all honesty, no, we haven't. And should we? Yes, we should. I mean, there's definitely some stuff down there you probably don't need to be breathing in. I imagine asbestos was probably not a big deal back then, and it's probably rampant in dumps. But hopefully, I need to look into that. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's again, it's back to that same kind of thing. I you know, what do you do? I mean, some of it is you're exposing yourself. Other, who knows? You know, is it any worse than the stuff we're breathing now? I don't know, but
It's really hard to say. Whenever you have a really big cave in or something like that, though, and there's so many particulates in the air, that's when you really want to have it. When you're down in there and you're just digging, it's not bad. Usually the cave ins are whenever the dust gets blown up off the floor into your face. I have one video that right in the beginning you can see the cave in, and it's not something that probably would kill you if it came down, but it's enough that it puts dust in the air for a few minutes, and it's a good idea to get out of the way and let it settle before you get back in there.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I guess that's my next question is, how do you manage the heat of 100 degrees? Like, I refuse to go metal detecting, let alone sit in a huge hole in the bottom of the ground that's hotter than the outside air anyway.
It's really, like I said, it's become an obsession with me to find these bottles, and as much as I hate to say that, it really has. But the fact of, like I said, a team is what makes me be able to do what I have in these videos. I mean, without these guys helping me dig these holes, there's no way that I could dig a hole big enough to bury a car in by myself. Without somebody there with you and dividing the workload and giving you breaks, you're not going to be able to do what we do. So, plus it helps that, Clayton and Tristan, they're 21. I've got a good 10 years on them. So they help me out a lot. They start real quick, and that helps me out a ton. And they enjoy it as much as I do. Clayton's probably worse than all of us. He'll get in there and just tear it up. He's super fast. You just about got to pull him out of the hole by his toes to get him out.
Oh my gosh. So when you guys dig a big pit like this, do you have a pick system? Like, I know a lot of relic hunters will have that. If you find the spot, you get first pick, and then whoever's next, then it's like draw straws. Or, like, how do you guys work it out so that everybody feels like it's equal?
Well, basically, if we have a ton of people and we're all rotating in and out of the hole, we try to do one embossed bottle, and then you get out and the next guy gets in, regardless of the rarity or the value. So it's really just kind of a luck of the draw scenario. And we found some $400 or $500 bottles, and one guy grabs a $500 bottle, and the next guy may not find anything the rest of the day. Well, guess what? We're still friends at the end of the day because we knew that it could have been the next guy that got it. It was the same chance for all of us, and we've never had hurt or hard feelings over that. So really, like I said, just rotate out one embossed bottle a piece before the next guy gets in behind you.
Yeah, that works great. I mean, it works for you guys. It's different for everybody. I think that's the whole point of all of it. So I guess somebody had another question about. We'll move on. So let's move into cleaning. How do you clean your bottles?
For the bottles that aren't as rare, I usually use a baby bottle brush, which you'll know about that here real soon. But you can go to Walmart and just buy a baby bottle brush, and it'll have like a sponge on the end of it. I'll throw some Dawn on there and throw it in the kitchen sink and listen to my wife gripe about all the dirt. But no, in all seriousness, for the good bottles, I actually will tumble those. And it's kind of the same setup as a rock tumbler. Actually, mine is a rock tumbler. Some of these guys have real nice setups with dual or multi-tubes going. And your bottle rotates at a certain RPM with copper shavings or copper chips around it. It can stay in there from 24 hours to a week. It just depends on how long you want to be in there. And you can use different particulates to mix in there with the copper to give you a finer finish. And some bottles will come out and they will look brand new. Now, some collectors, they hate that. Some people, they like it. To me, I like my bottles to look like they did before they went in the ground. So I want them to be as clean as they possibly can be. So everything that's in my personal collection are usually the best examples that I've found and as clean as I can possibly get them.
I think what collectors don't like is they don't like them tumbled so slick that it starts to pull the embossing off of it. I've seen bottles that had really nice embossing that were tumbled, and they are just so slick, and then all the crispness of the embossing's gone. At least that's my experience.
You'd have to leave it in there for weeks to get the embossing off of most bottles. That's the thing is, I don't know how. I don't know how some people do it, but they do manage to do that. And it could be maybe their particular or their copper that they're using to put in there, or the media, whatever you want to call it. It could be what they're using. Maybe they're not using the right thing. But I mean, there's a company called Jar Doctor that specializes in bottle digging stuff for tumbling. And Jar Doctor has the actual particulates you can buy from them by the pound. And that seems to be the stuff that does the best, in all honesty. It's not cheap. I mean, you're paying for copper by the pound, so you know it's going to be expensive. But at the end of the day, it really does a wonderful job.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have and there's risk involved in cleaning bottles, right?
Yes, there is. Actually, I mean, it's a very small risk, but I have never broke one myself. But I was actually buying a bottle from one of my buddies, which is it was an 1870s bottle from a local town called Blunt Springs, and it was cobalt. Beautiful bottle, perfect condition. Went into the tumbler and came out 3 days later and had a crack, hairline crack that was about 6 inches all the way up the backside. You know, it was normally a $300 bottle, instantly dropped to basically $50. I mean, it was still an example, but it just killed the value.
Right, right, and that's something that bottle collectors, they want like the best example. And something like I'm a guy who digs, so like my bottles in the background aren't perfect. Especially the stuff that I've dug. If it's my example, it's my example because I dug it. So I think that's really interesting. But most collectors, like any collector, they want the perfect example of it. But I guess, we can kind of move on. Over the last few years, you started, or I guess you've always metal detected, right?
Well, really, I've been around it, like I said, my whole life, but really the last 5 years, I got back into it. And I guess like probably a lot of people watching, I started watching some people on YouTube and, some of the big name people that are still out there and still doing well, and thought, man, that looks like a ton of fun. I need to get back into it. My wife talked me back into it, actually. And we started out with a couple of detectors, and we had a blast for a couple of years. Sadly, our area isn't just an abundance of stuff pre-1880. So, we were happy to find mercury dimes and stuff like that. Some people that are finding this stuff, like you, I mean, you're finding killer stuff in Virginia. The history is just a lot deeper there. But, it's still fun. It's still something I enjoy. But really, bottle digging has been my main passion the last few years. But yeah, metal detecting is a blast, man. I have fun with it. I love relic hunting. We do a lot of coin shooting. We stay on the curb strips, pick the silver out of there, have a good time with that. I've dug, I don't know how many mercury dimes and stuff through the last couple of years. It's been a ton of fun though, for sure.
Yeah, you know what, I think that it kind of goes hand in hand with the same thing you talked about with the bottle digging, is that I'm pretty blessed to live where I live and have the history that I have. But to be honest with you, I find it to be the same way. Like, I don't care what I'm digging up. I like it's fun. I think some of the most interesting personal things I've ever found weren't but from the 1930s or 40s or class rings, or maybe if I was lucky enough to find a soldier's ID tag or something like that, even if it was from World War I or II. I think something that people often lose is that because it's not as old as everything else, doesn't make it less important.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. It's just I think people after a while they're watching our channels and they're looking for stuff to really just pop. You have these guys pulling out Riels and all this other stuff. The mercury dime doesn't appeal to them as much. In the beginning, my channel was going to be a metal detecting channel, believe it or not. I mean, that was all I was going to do with metal detect. And after kind of getting into the market and getting out there, and I was bottle digging, like I said, more than I was metal detecting. I put the first video out there, and people liked it. And I was like, man, you know what? There's not as many people doing this bottle digging stuff as they are metal detecting. I was like, it'll probably be easier for me to fall into the niche of bottle digging, and I did. And I'm glad I did. It's just been a wild ride, and it's. That's what actually, my bottle digging is actually what got me my metal detectors sponsorship. So that's the crazy part.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that. So you're actually sponsored by Fisher, right?
Yeah, Fisher Technetics, First Texas. So I was sponsored by those guys. My videos on bottle digging caught their eye. Everybody knows them as the metal detecting companies, but they love history just like we do. So their thing was I had a way of saving history that was different than most people. I even had a way to tell people how to use a metal detector, how to find bottles to an extent. With the Hutchinson bottles, with that stopper being inside of it and being metal, it rings up in the 70s on an F-75. You can actually find a Hutch bottle with a metal detector. How about that? But
Oh my gosh! See, I never even considered that. Like, so one of my good friends, Tony Hostetler, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, he's like, I want to invent a metal detector that finds glass. Well, it's already been made, Tony. You just have to go out and dig with an F-75 some more.
But no, I mean, I actually have a story, if we have time for it, of a guy that was in North Georgia, and they were at an old bottling plant, and my buddy went there with a probe, and he probed all day around this lot trying to find a bottle, trying to find where they dumped their bottles, like I spoke about earlier. He couldn't find it. The next day, a guy went out there and metal detected the same lot, pulled one of the rarest Hutchinsons in Georgia out because it had the stopper in it. It was like 6 inches below the surface. He probed all the way around it and missed it. That guy found it with a metal detector. So
yeah,
it can happen.
But that's how it happens, and I think that's cool. It's just one of those things. So we'll talk a little bit about your channel. So you have a cool thing that you're doing with Fisher, and you're giving away an F-Pulse pinpointer once a month, right?
Yeah, it was one of those things. They came to me and they said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing a Fisher F-Pulse giveaway monthly. Would you want to do it?" And I was like, "Do I look stupid? Do I not want to do it?" People love it. So yeah, I'll do it. And they've been very generous, and they've provided me with the pinpointer every month to give away. And I've basically just been the transit between Texas to wherever it goes. So it's been great giving it away, and I've enjoyed seeing people get this new pinpointer in their hands, because really it's a great pinpointer. I mean, it's really unrecognized in the market. I wish more people would give it a chance. It's a great pinpointer for sure.
The what is it? Jay Diggs said, absolutely. I just cracked the Tampa Pepsi in a tumbler. Oh wow.
Yeah, that's. Thanks.
Yeah. So in your holes and stuff, I guess there's so much iron. It's probably pretty difficult to use a pinpointer or a metal detector for that kind of stuff. So I guess my other question is have you ever done any like bottle hunting in the water or anything like that, or do you have any prospects to move your bottle hunting outside of just looking for dumps or privies?
I actually did 1 or 2 videos this year of creek walking, one of which I snorkeled this creek. And what we did is, it had been rumored for years, and the rumor had been proven that this town actually used the creek as their dump. And you wouldn't know it to look at the creek. It's beautiful now, but 115 years ago, they literally dumped all of their trash into this creek. And now it's a place where people come and canoe and kayak and everything. So me and my buddies, we walked it. Tristan actually lives really close to it. He'd been walking it and finding killer bottles like every week. And I was like, dude, I wonder what's in those deeper pockets out there. I was like, you're not getting over your waist. I was like, I'm going to get a snorkel and we're going to give it a shot. So I went out there with a snorkel. I found a couple of crown tops that were over 100 years old, which was pretty neat. They were both pretty common, but it really opened my eyes to the fact that I'm still at the surface with a snorkel. What if I dive? What if I dive? What will I find if I were to dive in the deeper pockets that are 12, 15, 20 foot deep? And, it may be a pipe dream right now, but one day I would love to get certified in diving, because I imagine that there's probably some killer stuff there and really everywhere. I mean, I'd love to be able to travel and find some of the Civil War age stuff that y'all find up there. I love that stuff. I mean, anything I can do to kind of further the hobby and further how deep I'm into it, I'm all about it.
So Heartbreaker Relics said you also like to hunt arrowheads as well. I guess, obviously I know that, if you had one thing that you'd rather do is go out and dig bottles, but how often do you divide up your time? Is it based like, man, I can't get in this dump today, but maybe I can get into this plow field? Like, do you have any like Do you have plans? How do you set up your dividing your digging time?
Well, basically, really, how I divide it out is if I don't have a digging partner, I'm not digging bottles usually. I'm going to go metal detecting, or I'm going to go arrowhead hunting, or I'm going to do something that I can do that's going to take less work and that's going to be a little safer. So that's really my go-to. And here lately, everybody's kind of gotten busy. It's that time of year, everybody's super busy, and I've been able to do a little bit more of like history clip work on my channel and stuff like that. And I haven't been able to get into the dump as much as I would like to and get as deep as I normally do because of not having people to come dig with me. That being said, I would say that I probably 75% of the time I'm bottle digging, probably 15% of the time I'm metal taking, and 10% of the time I'm hunting arrowheads. And if I can do it all at once, I would, but I can't. So
You find a bottle dump in the middle of a Civil War field full of arrowheads, you'd have like the trifecta.
Right, exactly.
So 925 asked, is there any aspirations of traveling, whether it be England or like, do you have any ideas of other places in the country you'd like to go dig bottles?
Well, I've been invited even though my channel's not monstrous, I've been invited to several places down to go dig. Really, I would really love to dig bottles in Alaska. I don't know why. I think it would be a blast. Anywhere that used to be an old gold town and where they were doing the gold rush stuff, I think that would be a blast to get in there and find that stuff. I would love to go overseas and find stuff because, I mean, the stuff we have over here is like a baby compared to the stuff they have over there. The age is just really deep. I wouldn't know where to start over there. I don't know anything about cod liver bottles or anything. Everything that they have over there is going to be different out of my range. I'd have to, rely heavily. Plus, I think that they have a lot of stuff over there where you have to have permits now. If it's over 50 years old, it's got to be sent in and all kinds of stuff. I don't know. I don't know the full specs on it, but heck, I'd love to give it a shot.
Yeah, I don't know the rules on bottles either, but I've seen some videos of guys like taking excavators and just digging these huge holes, and there's bottles at the bottom of them. So I mean, I guess if your town dump there is 500 years old, you guys are digging 10 feet for a 100-year-old dump. So it makes sense. You got to dig 40 or 50 feet.
Yeah, that's the crazy part is, with our bottles only being 100 years old, I mean, it does not take away from the value. I guess is what I'm trying to say. And, over there, their bottles they're digging may be several hundred or a couple hundred years old, however old they are. But at the end of the day, I don't know what they're worth over there. They may be worth a ton. But all I know is in my area, like I said, the Magnificent Seven surrounded me. And so, you got Bessemer Coca-Cola hutches that are going for $8,000 and $10,000. You got Birmingham Coke hutches going for $6,000 and $8,000. The Talladega Coke hutch, $7,000, $8,000. You've got different ones like Tuskegee, and I mean the Tuskegee Coke hutch goes for around $2,500. I actually had a buddy that dug, and this is no kidding, he dug in one hole that he dug 7 Tuskegee Coke hutches. He turned around, sold all 7, and had $15,000 in his pocket. And I was like, man, are you kidding me? Can you imagine one dig? You dig one hole that's 6 foot deep, and you come out with $15,000. Now, obviously, that doesn't happen every day. But literally, that is buried treasure. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, that's kind of the once in a lifetime, and it's interesting to talk about value. I mean, that's not something that I talk about often with the folks that I interview, but it really does. It is something that you have to consider whenever you're doing this kind of stuff, is because that I always believe that we're simple stewards of the history that we hold. So at some point in time, there becomes value. Like, we have a responsibility to maintain the location of where we found it, whether that's private or public, and we have the responsibility to keep it in the best available condition. But there comes a point in time that you have to talk about value and the fact that that some of the stuff we do find is valuable, and I think that's tough for some people to swallow. But that's a great example. I don't know that I could walk into a place and find $15,000 worth of the same item and not sell all but 1 or 2 or however many I had.
That's kind of been my my philosophy. If I dig something I've never dug before and it's valuable, I still own the most valuable bottle that I dug. I haven't sold it. So if that tells you anything, I don't sell my first that I've ever dug or my most valuables. It's usually if I sell something myself, it's going to be a duplicate. And a lot of times you'll see in the videos that we're digging tons of duplicates of certain things. After a while, you run out of shelf space. You can't keep it. And, we do different trade shows and bottle shows and all kinds of different stuff like that. We'll even do like little free sections for kids that are walking by, like bottles. Kids under 15 take a bottle for free just to try to get them into the hobby itself. Just because I don't think as many people are really into this as they are other relic hunting things. I mean, I really think that there's more people out there metal detecting and possibly arrowhead hunting than there are bottle digging. And it's just really lack of knowledge that's out there and lack of people wanting to pass on the knowledge. And that's really what I've tried to take in this year into account is I want people to be able to do this on their own in their area and help the hobby itself grow.
I think, unfortunately, there's a reason that there aren't that many people going out digging a 10-foot deep, 8-foot wide hole. That's because that's a lot of damn work. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess not everybody's in that little circuit like we're in, where the rarest bottles, could be. We're just really in the prime spot for it. It's kind of like you being in Virginia. You're in a prime location for Civil War history. Well, I'm in a prime location for these Coca-Cola Hutchinson bottles and this Cola War stuff. So I mean, it's really about where you're at, what you're chasing, and what you're after. And I'm like you. I love all history. I mean, I can sit there at the end of the day and just read about it all day, read old newspapers and look at old maps. That stuff just fascinates me. The amount of time I spend doing that is ridiculous.
Yeah, and so Madison Maine kind of brings up an interesting point. He says he doesn't like selling anything. It's part of my history as much as it is part of who lost its history. And I can agree to that. I think that makes a lot of sense for a lot of the relics kind of stuff. But at some point in time, some of the stuff we were digging turns out it was just somebody's garbage.
Yeah.
Even that fantastic officer's hut that we found over the week, it had a broken sword scabbard, it had a whiskey bottle, and it had a few other items. It had a discarded. That was in 1850 or 1863 when that was a winter camp. Even though that was, to us, incredible relics of the past, that was garbage to a Civil War soldier. He wasn't going to carry that around.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure, comes to mind for sure. And it just makes you wonder, if, 100 years from now, what people are going to be digging up that was ours.
Dude, I was going to ask you that next. Like, what do you think people will be digging up of our cell phones?
Yeah, probably cell phones. I don't know. With all these guys finding them in the rivers, they may not leave any behind.
And this is this is super interesting to me. Like, it's cool to have these kind of conversations, like from a guy in Alabama to just, some dude in Virginia, just to talk about the history like this. And it's really cool. Heartbreaker Relic says nothing because none of the stuff we make will last that long. That's probably a pretty real statement. Yeah, as far as the diving for bottles thing goes, that's top of my list. I'm going to be doing that next summer. So maybe I'll find my way down to Alabama and we'll go diving in that creek together.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast, man. I'd love to do that for sure. I want to know what's down there as much as anything.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You have alligators down there?
No alligators, but we do have copperheads and water moccasins, so you just got to worry about snakes.
Water moccasins can't bite you underwater, right?
I don't know. I've never been close enough to one underwater to find out.
I don't know. I see the guys at Heartbreaker Relics. They walk on those things. They don't care. Yeah, I think that's about it. So one thing you want to find next year?
One thing I want to find. How about something Civil War related? I'll get out of the bottle stretch and say that I want to find something related to the Civil War. That's something I've always wanted to do and I've never done, and I want to do it. How about that?
Yeah. Travel any place to dig anything in the world, where would you go?
Oh man, that's a great question. That's I don't know that answer in all honesty. There's several things that, I mean, it's going to sound cliche. I would love to just go pull a relic off of Oak Island, not just because it's big on History Channel, just to say that I did. A lot of these different places like that, as crazy as those shows are, and they may be staged or may not, I don't know. I still watch it. I'm hooked in it. I watch all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would probably have to say, or maybe even go over to England and find something around a castle. I mean, just something like that would be amazing. I mean, just anything with history, I'm about it. It doesn't have to be one certain thing. How about that? As long as it has a good tale behind it.
Yeah. Okay. I get that. So you go to a baseball game and you get a hot dog. You can only put one condiment on it. What is it?
Is chili considered a condiment?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Then chili.
Well, I think that's all I have for questions. I don't if I like the hot dog question. I don't know why it cracks me up every time. It's so different. Everyone says something different. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and throw those questions in the comments here. So your mom said she would put mayo on a hot dog. Your mom's a strange lady.
She's from New Jersey. What do you expect?
Oh, hey, my wife's from New Jersey. Easy. So we've knocked down an hour here. So what's the rarest color bottle you have?
Ooh, probably that cobalt blob that has that crack in it I was talking about from being tumbled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
those are pretty rare. You don't really find a cobalt hutch or a blob top very often in the Alabama area, and that's it's a really beautiful bottle.
Do you collect fruit jars?
I do have jars. Do I readily collect them? No. I mean, most of the time they're fairly common. In all honesty, it's always fun to find one because for it to remain intact as thin as the glass is really amazing. And I usually keep them, but do I have them displayed? No. And it's just not something I just go after.
Oh, this is what? Yeah, I think that's yeah. Somebody agreed to the Mayo comment. That's two crazy people in the chat. Tin Cup Tim, good evening. I think that's all the questions we got. Marbles, yeah. What kind of other like weird stuff? Like, do you find doll faces like that are like the creepiest things in the world?
Yeah, we found a ton of stuff. Probably some of the weirdest stuff we found. We found a glass eyeball. We found false teeth. We found old bone toothbrushes. Obviously, are going to be in there. We found those. We found the clay pipes. We found tons and tons of marbles. Tristan is the marble freak out of our group. Usually, he takes the marbles home. He'll trade bottles for marbles. Yeah, so he's one of those. He loves them. So we end up trading. At the end of the day, if somebody has something that the other guy doesn't want, that's something else we do is we'll trade out. If I found a bottle that one guy wants and he wants my marbles, he can have them. I lost my marbles a long time ago. You can ask my wife
that. What's the bottle you find in almost every hole?
Definitely, Jay Diggs said something about it just a second ago. French's mustard. We're going to find French's mustard or Heinz ketchup in every hole, regardless. And there's going to be a ton of the slick meds. You get tired of those after a little while. I mean, we'll dig. I mean, in the videos, you might see us pull 15 or 20 bottles out, but we've pulled hundreds out to get those 15 or 20 that we show you. That's the crazy part.
So
Yeah, California.
So how many? This is my question. How many? How often do you find poison bottles?
Pretty often. We found a good bit of them. We've actually found two cobalt skull and crossbones this year, which is pretty awesome. We found multiple browns. I actually found one triangular shaped brown poison that I've never seen. I hadn't even been able to find in a book. It's actually a really neat poison. The cobalt poisons, they're awesome though. That's one I've been after. That's kind of like my white whale. I've been after one and I cannot find one for nothing. Tristan and Clayton pull them out every time we go, and I cannot put my hands on one. I don't know why. It's just how it works.
Well, I got a personal request. I want a common poison from an Alabama dump.
I can do that. I probably got about 4 on my desk behind me. So
I want one dug out of the video. How about that?
these were all dug on video, so we.
Oh man! All right, well you got me. That's fine. I will completely. That's my personal request. So
Not a problem.
somebody said premier bottles are also a nightmare.
No.
Yeah.
I don't.
So. Well, Liz, have you ever found a crotal bell? Metal detecting?
No, I have not. Not metal detecting nor in a dump. I have not found either. I don't know. I mean, I guess they were in use down here, but they're not a.
I've never found one in Virginia. I think they have. Like, I know that they find them just farther north than me in Maryland. I have found a very large bell, but I've never found anything like that. So, well, we have completely nailed down an hour.
Went by fast.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, man. Dude, I've had an absolute great time. Thanks to everybody in the chat. We've had 31 here hanging out. I think, dude, your knowledge and then your passion to dig a gigantic hole in the ground. Obviously, you're gonna find great stuff when you do that. Is really cool. Coils to the Soil says if you ever want to come dig in his backyard, you can find lots of fireball bottles. We'll keep that in mind. We only want full ones. So, dude, for everybody in the chat or who may be watching after the show, please go check out Adventure Archaeology's channel. So how long you've done YouTube for a couple years, but really put a lot of work into it this year, right?
Yeah, January 2017, we put out our first video, and we did about 3 episodes of really terrible footage. It was the cell phone long ways, and you couldn't tell what we were doing, and it was really bad. And and I kind of lost interest in around, I don't know, maybe June. So I did 3 or 4 videos, lost interest in June 2017. I didn't put anything out for about 5 or 6 months. And I decided, in January 2018 to give it a really good push, and I did, and we've grown over 3,000 subscribers in basically 11 months. And that's, record timing for me. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but to me that says a lot about how many people are interested in what we do, and I hope it stays that way.
Well, I'm sure it will. And for every for what you guys, the content you're producing, the quality and the fun, and then the other history clips and the knowledge and stuff like that, man, I absolutely love it, and I know everybody in the chat does as well, because they wouldn't be here if they didn't. So I tell you what, man, I thank you very much for coming on the show. It was an absolute pleasure. I hope that we'll get you back on here again. I'm going to slide you a little bit off to the side, and I'm going to close the show out, so don't go anywhere. How about that?
All right, sounds good, man. Thanks.
So, all right, so there you go. Adventure Archaeology, a fantastic show, fantastic channel. Go check out Brandon and all the guys digging all those crazy holes. But not only do they do that, they have history clips, information on so much just knowledge and stuff to learn. Please go over there and check them out. I would like to personally thank everybody for coming on the show and hanging out this evening. Probably, fingers crossed, no show next Tuesday, but Friday at 8 p.m. I'm going to try to do a live stream. I hope we'll have a new baby in my arms at that point in time. But we will be doing a show with Neil, the Diggers Down Under, the comic chef. It should be a lot of fun to hang out with Neil. It'll be on 8 p.m. on Friday of next week, so it'll be a little off of our schedule. But the way Neil works and 15 hours difference in Australia, that makes all the sense in the world. And then one last thing is that I'm going to be working on a kind of a YouTube creators like metal detecting diggers style conference. It'll be a call-in phone chat kind of conference, and it'll be all about growing channels and channel creation and all of that kind of stuff. If you are interested in that, please send me a message. I would love to have your input. Talk about YouTube and growing your channel and all that good stuff. It should be really awesome. So again, great stream from Brandon and Adventure Archaeology. And I say that as I see it, DK from Adventure and Dirt popping in the chat. So, but for tonight, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to close out the chat and the show. And I would like to thank you for returning to Gone Diggin' Live from the Relic Room this evening, featuring Adventure Archaeology. It's been a great show. It's been a lot of fun. I hope everybody gets to put a metal detector over top the dirt, gets to dig a bottle in a deep pit, or finds an arrowhead on top of the ground. Whatever you do, I hope you get to go out and do it this week. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time on Gone Diggin'. Have a great evening.